Welcome back, CEOs. Here is where we talk all things beauty, business, and beyond. I'm Sona Mir, and I'm a GTA-based makeup artist and a beauty educator and a hairstylist since 2009, and the proud owner of Dalmia Beauty Lounge. I specialize in lived-in color and all things makeup. Now, if you're just starting out in the beauty industry or the small business world, I'm here to bring you the realest industry tips and to help you succeed and thrive. Now, let's talk about something every entrepreneur will face in the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey. People try to take advantage of your time and your skills and your generosity. Now, did you know that nearly 60% of business owners have faced financial losses due to disputes with friends and family, or whether it's influencers disguising personal favors as collaborations to score free services? Then there's clients that act like hiring you gives them full control over your entire existence, or friends and family assuming your hard work comes at no cost. It's time to set some boundaries and protect your business and, well, demand the respect you deserve. In today's episode, we're going to be diving deep into these challenges with an incredible guest. She's a cake decorator, a creative connoisseur, and a confectionery queen. She just transforms sugar into showstoppers and flour into flawless 5-tier fantasies. In Toronto's luxury wedding and event scene, she doesn't just bake cakes, she creates edible masterpieces. And today we're going to be diving into the business behind the buttercream. And just like the beauty industry, she deals with demanding clients, unrealistic expectations, and influencers who want everything for nothing. Meet Maria of Maria Made This. So excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and I really want to pick your brain about a few things. And you and I, we've had discussions off camera several times about all these little issues that small businesses go through in our daily lives, right? Yeah. And the very purpose of this entire thing is to really bring it all to light. So before we get right into it, I would love you to tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, why cakes?
Okay, so I actually went to school for art. So when I was in high school, I went to an arts specialized high school. And I was born like an art student. Like even as a kid, I was always doing like arts and crafts and I was super into it. But then I also really love science. So I couldn't, like I love science way more than I love art.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're basically Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Modern day Da Vinci.
Yeah, I think so. So I pursued a full-time career in science, like very hardcore science. And then I felt a little guilty that my artistic side was being neglected. So while I was in school, I started baking as kind of a distraction, or not a distraction, kind of like from taking a break from studying, because I was always studying all the time. And then it just kind of turned into cakes. It's funny because I actually didn't make cakes. I made everything except cakes because
other baked goods, like cookies?
Like I would make cupcakes, cake pops, and then I refused to make cakes because I was too scared. I'm like, it's too complicated. I don't want to get into that world. But then one day I just like tried.
And you evolved.
I just kept going.
It.
Yeah, because like my first cake was hideous. It was so bad.
I think everybody's is.
It was really bad. But then I just kept going, and like now I only make cakes.
I love that.
Yeah, so it really was just like a way for me to express my creativity in a way that I can showcase like stuff that I've made. But at heart, I am like a true science person. But it's my side thing, you know?
I think it's just a really you're just a very well-balanced individual.
Thank you.
You kind of exercise both parts of your brain, and
yeah,
that's very admirable.
For sure.
So I will get right into all the fun questions.
The fun stuff.
So let's talk a little bit about like setting boundaries without losing grace, you know, because sometimes it can come off aggressive. Sometimes, like, how do you set boundaries? But like, specifically in the wedding industry where the stakes are high and like emotions just run wild, you know, expectations can be just through the roof for some clients. So how do you set some of these hard boundaries from day one to just ensure mutual respect through the entire transaction?
So I think like when you're starting off, as in like, I will just be completely transparent. Like as a new baker, it's really hard to have boundaries because you really want to get that booking. You really want that client to like choose you. So it's really hard. And unfortunately, like a lot of new bakers and anybody who's new and doing any kind of business, I feel like they experience a lot of like pushover at that stage because you want that booking so bad. So I think when you're new, it's really hard. But I think there also is like a learning curve when you're starting out as a new business to kind of pick and choose stuff that will bring value to your brand. I think like as I started to build my business more and more, I was able to, start having boundaries, and you kind of pick up on the types of customers that you're getting.
Yeah.
So
100%.
you really start to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really important skill to have in a business, because if you're always saying yes to everybody, like you're not really adding value to your brand. Like you're not defining your clientele. So I know that to some people it's like it might come off as like snobby or like, oh, like she doesn't want to take my thing. But to me it's a boundary, because it's like, I'll give you an example. Like I don't make fondant cakes. I don't like fondant.
You don't like them.
And like I don't care who gets mad by me saying this. Like I think fondant cakes are so ugly. Like they taste disgusting. Like I don't like it. It's nasty. Like someone's using Play-Doh basically.
It feels like Play-Doh.
Yeah, and then you're eating it. Like it's gross.
The texture is strange.
Yeah, like I don't think that there are like, don't get me wrong, there's some cake artists that use fondant and they're stunning.
Yeah.
It's just not my thing.
And their fondant tastes good. And it's very, very rare, but it does happen.
But like it's just not my thing. So like if you're gonna come to me and like start pushing me to make you a fondant cake, like no, like that's a boundary, and I'm not gonna do it.
Do you think that you're basically kind of sifting through and filtering out those clients when the ones that think that you are being snobby, when you're just respectfully saying, hey, like this is just not what I do, and you're not taking no for an answer, then you know that this is not your client.
Yeah.
Right? You know right off the bat, like you kind of have to like draw into your gut instinct a little bit too and say, this person's making me feel funny right now.
Yeah.
And you got to listen to that, right?
Yeah.
And especially like if you come off from the beginning, especially in this day and age today where you have all the resources sort of available to you, you have your contracts in place, you have everything, you kind of a few steps ahead. If you're fully organized, you're walking into a new business, that does help a little bit, because then your clients are like, wow, she has everything organized.
Yeah.
So do you feel you were organized that way when you went into the business?
I don't think I was.
No.
I think when I started out, I was one of those people that was saying yes to everybody. But I also knew what I couldn't do.
Right.
So like if someone...
So realistic.
Yeah. So like,
yourself.
Again, like if someone's asking me for like a wedding cake and I just started out, like I'm going to say no, because I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I don't know what I'm doing, or like I mess it up. So
because some people, I think, sorry to cut you off, but some people, I think sometimes they say, I'll take this on and I'll wing it.
Yeah. That's dangerous.
That's dangerous.
That's very
especially
dangerous.
With weddings. You can't wing it no matter what.
It's not, it's really risky, because if you mess it up, like especially in the beginning, if you're starting out, if you mess it up, like you just demolished your whole reputation, like right in the start. And like, that's not good. Like at least if you're a veteran and you make a mistake, you have people that can vouch for your credibility. But if you do it right in the beginning and you mess it up, and like I've seen it happen too, and it's just like not. So that's why like setting boundaries is so important. Like you should know your own ability and how much you can do and take on, and also like being realistic about like the type of customers that you want in your
sphere.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes complete sense. And I will be doing another video on identifying your target client. I shouldn't say target client, your ideal client, right? And there's like an exercise that I have for that, which will be really, really helpful. So I'll make a whole other video on that. But we can get to the next question, which is, of course, not every client is bad. And there are truly, truly some gems in this industry. And they almost have your back more. I have had that experience in the past, but there's some clients who, the rare ones that they feel once they've hired a vendor, they own them.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So I have experienced that time and again. So how do you professionally and firmly remind them that, you're giving them your time, but your service deserves respect as well?
I think it all comes down to communication and like how you communicate with that person. Like I've had clients in the past who, because they've paid me a deposit, they now feel like they can like they can call my phone at like 10 o'clock at night to show me more design ideas for the cake. And I think if you don't respectfully, like, again, set a boundary and like put your foot down right in the get-go, like you're basically setting the stage to let that bride or that client speak to you and treat you in that way.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be rude, but I think it's really important to be like, okay, look, these are my working hours. I will answer your email or your question tomorrow.
So that's actually a very good way to go about it. And you kind of just set those expectations from the get-go, incorporating these types of points into your consultation right off the bat and sending them a follow-up email. You know, you just have that template kind of laid out. Working hours are Monday to Friday. We will have the first follow-up on so-and-so day, the second follow-up on so-and-so day. In the middle, if you do need to contact me, send me an email and I will get back to you within 48 hours. So have like your policies and procedures very clearly identified, just so that they know right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then if you don't pick up, it's like, hey, really sorry. You know, I was just, these are my working hours. And as you saw in the contract, I would be getting in touch with you in 48 hours.
You also have like the clients that they'll agree to all of the stuff in the contract, but then they don't follow it.
Yeah.
So like with me for cakes, one of the biggest problems that I face is paying the remaining half of the deposit. That is my biggest pet peeve, because it's like you are paying for a service. So for example, let's just say, for example, someone gets a cake for like $900, okay? So they pay me half upon booking, and then the remaining half, I always state, is due 2 days before your event date. And why I say 2 days before the event date, because like, let's be real, like on the actual wedding day, there's like 7 other vendors that need to be paid. You're running around, there's envelopes, there's, oh, my dad has the cash.
It's chaos.
It's chaotic. And like for someone like me who's just one person, like I don't have a company behind me. I'm just one girl coming in, setting up your cake. I think it's so cringe to like set up the cake and then be standing there waiting to be paid. It is the most,
it really
first of all, it's like degrading.
It's degrading.
I feel like it's degrading. Like, I don't know, some people will be like, oh, you're being dramatic, it's not that serious. No, to me, it's like really embarrassing.
So would it work if you went in? So this is kind of how I managed it when I was doing weddings and I was traveling. Before I set up, it's like, hey, I need to speak with the individual. And I've already had this discussion in the phone call before the event. Have the individual with my envelope ready to go. And so that I can collect the payment first. Now, if there are any overage charges or any surcharges, we can discuss that later towards the end. And that usually is a nominal amount anyways, right? But like, I will not set up until I collect the money. And it's only because, you know, sometimes I used to have a team and I need to make sure that they are paid. So then it would come out of my pocket entirely if something goes wrong.
And that's unfair.
That's really unfair.
For the most part, like people are really good about it. Like they understand, like they'll have an envelope for me ready, or like they'll pay me in advance. So like I don't usually have this problem, but the rare times that I do, it is the most, like I can't explain, like it makes me so frustrated because it's like, you're not gonna walk into Louis Vuitton and be like, oh, here's half the money for my purse. Oh, I'll give you the other half later. It's like, what do you mean? And it's like, if you're not treating your other vendors at your wedding like that, like, can you imagine telling your DJ or like your decor person, like, oh, I'll give you the other half like later on, I'm busy. It's like, just because you're the bride doesn't mean you're the prime minister. Like, relax. Like everyone,
maybe just for the
like,
day in your family,
calm down. Like, you know, like I just think it's having etiquette as it doesn't always have to be a bride.
And you know, it's karma. That's one thing I always think about. This is your day. You want to walk in to your new life with people blessing you and giving you and sending you really good vibrations, not by cheating.
You don't want people to be upset.
You don't want people to be upset.
Or like bothering you, like when you're on your honeymoon, like, hey, can I have my money? Like, it's terrible. And like, why? Like,
and people have businesses to run. They have expenses to pay. Their credit card bills are up.
And it's honestly like not personal. It's just a transaction. It's not like, oh, I'm begging you for money. No, it's a transaction. Like you owe that money.
You owe it
for the service. In this case, the cake that you were provided.
100%.
Why is there a delay? Like, that is one of my biggest pet peeves, and I make it so known when I book. Like, once again, that's another boundary. Like, I make it very known, like, I need the money 2 days before your event date. I'm not going to chase you down.
So I have a little way around this, and I've used it, and I've had some of my students use it, and it's worked really well for the makeup and mobile makeup space. Now, most of the time they want to pay cash.
Okay.
So if in your booking policies, I expect the payment 2 days before and you need to come drop it off to me, or I have to meet you midpoint somewhere and pick up the envelope. If that has not been agreed upon, the time, send them a payment link with a credit card transaction fee and the HST on top.
Yeah.
And until that payment isn't made, you don't show up.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have your contract to really back that up, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's not for the individuals that are there. 90% of people are good and they don't want to screw you over. But you know, the sore thumbs.
Yeah.
You have to do all this work for those individuals, unfortunately. And that's just a means of protecting yourself.
I don't think I've ever, I've had a situation where I thought about like, okay, if this person doesn't pay me, like, I'm not going to show up. But like, I've never done it because I can't.
I know. And I've never done that either.
Like when it comes to a cake, I'm just like, I can't. And
I know.
And I guess that's just me as a person. Like I feel bad.
Because you're sweet.
Like I feel bad. Like I don't want to be the person, like at the end of the day, like we're all humans, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to really approach, like I understand that we have to approach things being like empaths.
Yeah.
And we have to be like, okay, like it's this person's event, maybe they're just not thinking. And it would be more of a bad situation if I didn't set up the cake. Because then they'd be like, where's my cake?
Yeah,
and then, like,
but
you know,
there is an element of our organization and business, right? Like, because you can gauge it. Honestly, most of the time I can gauge if the person is
100%.
really honestly unable to like remember, recall, oh my God, I'm so busy.
You can totally
They're following up with you and they're telling you, like, you have the control and the power to make that decision based on your gut instinct, right? But sometimes, you know, like this person is dodging.
Like they're doing it on purpose.
They're doing it on purpose. They're dodging. What has happened over time, that's where my skin has gotten a little bit thicker, and that's and it's supposed to. You're supposed to evolve this way in your business throughout your lifetime, right? And it's not aggressive ways like, hey, I'm not showing up. Like you don't need to have sass, but it's like, hey, I actually haven't received the payment. So, like, I won't be. So I'm unfortunately unable to show up until I have that last part kind of cleared out. So most people, it's never gotten to that.
It's super rare.
It's because you have that policy in place, which is why people don't do it. It's almost like, okay, well, you know, we have a drinking and driving limit, right?
Yeah.
That's why most of us know that we're not going to get behind the wheel.
Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry, that's a bad example because I don't drink, you don't drink. But when you do, there's repercussions. Yeah. Right? That's my analogy. Okay, so my next question to you is, so there's usually a fine line between like wanting to accommodate a client's dream and just being pushed beyond reason. Now, I know you kind of gave an example of that just a little bit earlier, but have you ever had a situation in which you were like, I can't do it? Yeah.
All the time.
All the time.
I think people want things on short notice. Yeah. So in that situation, sometimes it's not their fault because a lot of people don't know that my cake business is not my full-time job. Like I have a whole full-fledged career going on in the back. So I always tell people like I need a week minimum to, you know, have any notice for cakes because I need to go get stuff. I need to prep stuff. So a lot of the time I'll have clients come to me and be like, can you make this cake for me for this weekend? And it's like Wednesday. to someone who, you know, baking is their full-time thing, like that's totally doable. But for me, I can't do it. And, you know, they'll be like, please, 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 like I only trust you. I only want you to do it. And although it like makes me sad to like turn people down, like unfortunately, like it's just not doable, and you just have to be able to put your foot down and be like, I'm really sorry, I can't do it. But I always follow up and like send them someone else
that you know.
And be like, hey,
ask you that.
Yeah, like why don't you try this person instead? Yeah, I mean, it's not the ideal.
This way you support each other's business too, right? It doesn't always have to be rivalry. It can be camaraderie.
Yeah, like I have a list of bakers that I frequently recommend to people to be like I'm really sorry, like I can't do it, but maybe you could try this person instead.
That makes complete sense, actually. So, controversial question.
Okay.
So let's be real. Bridezillas are a thing. So have you ever had to deal with one? And how did you keep your cool?
Yeah, I have. I feel like I have so much PTSD from it. Like I can't even talk about it. Oh my God.
They're rare, but the one or two that you come across, they change the course of your life, I feel.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
sometimes lose faith in humanity for a little while.
100%. 100%. Because I feel like I left that situation being like, what is wrong with you internally
Yeah.
that you felt like that you could handle the situation in that way? It's crazy. Honestly, I will give a lot of credit to my support system in that situation. Sometimes when I do cake setups, I don't always go by myself. I'll always take somebody with me
Yeah, that's a good
to
idea.
do like content or just to help me with like a lot of this time I have a lot of supplies with me. So I do give credit to my girls in that moment because I'm not somebody that is confrontational. I know some people will like to say the opposite, but I'm actually not confrontational, especially when it comes to something that I've made. I actually get very emotional about it because I feel like I put my heart and like my soul into making this for you, and now you're freaking out on me. And like I'll just be silent and I'll be like I'll react later on, but in the moment I'm not gonna get confrontational
because you're taking it back, right?
Yeah. I think these situations like not even dealing, like observing bridezillas and how they behave with vendors has taught me when I'm a bride one day, like I'm not gonna be that person. Like I don't ever want to treat somebody like that and like classify them as a vendor. Like, it's a human being at the end of the day. Like we're all humans. Like there's no need for you to be treating someone like that because you paid them, or because you think that, oh, you work for me now. Like it's not cool. And like
this is your tribe at this point.
And like in 2025, like come on, like mean girl energy as an adult, like please, like let's leave it outside. Like we don't need to be doing that. Like,
we're seeing what's happening to Blake Lively, right?
Yeah,
with, like all the mean girl
why are we being mean to each other? Like we're all here for the common purpose of, you know, having your big day turn out beautiful. And like just always remember, like this is a message to like all the future brides. Like the energy that you're giving to your vendors, they're gonna give it back in the product that they're making for you, whether it's a cake, whether it's your decor, your emceeing, your hair and makeup. The energy that you give to them, it's going to come right back in the product that you get. So really be mindful of the way that you speak to your vendors, because they may be smiling at you in your face, but trust me, when I'm making a cake and in the back of my head I can hear that person's voice telling me like all kinds of stuff.
My favorite is you know, they're very sweet. It's like, yeah, but you know, I'm a control freak and they're basically dictating every step you take. So that's when that control freak energy that you're putting into that vendor, they're bound to mess up. And I've noticed that every single time I've had a client or a bride say, I trust you, don't worry about it, it's not the end of the world, no one's even going to notice, that person's wedding has turned out completely flawless. And that's something I learned from my clients. And I made sure I brought that energy into my own wedding. And I'm telling you, I had not one issue.
I was just going to say, like, the cakes that I've made where there's like 5,000 restrictions, don't do this, it has to look like this, I don't want to see this, those cakes turn out the worst. Like they are so bad. The ones where people are like, Maria, make it purple, do your thing, I trust you. Those have been some of the most beautiful cakes I've ever 100%. Made. Because at the end of the day, like you're an artist.
You need your creative freedom.
You can't have somebody. When Leonardo da Vinci made his art pieces, did he have somebody standing over him being like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this? No. Like what are we doing? I'm not comparing us to Da Vinci.
No, but I think there's an element of carrying that kind of confidence within you. Humbly, of course.
Of course.
And because you're there to do your best job. So there have been times in the past where I've had to have conversations, like once the contract and everything's done, and I'm like, do you mind if I have a heart-to-heart conversation with you? Just because I really want to ensure your day goes super smoothly and we vibe well together. Like I have your back. I just want you to know that. But I'm just feeling like there's a bit of anxiety happening on your end. How can I like ease that before we go into the big day? Because I also want to function and perform my best. So when I've had that conversation with them in a very genuine way, they're like, oh my God, I felt like I just needed to be called out.
It's like self-awareness.
It's your tone too, right? A lot of times I think it's the tone you bring. And coming back to your point about confrontation, this is how you can be confrontational, but in a very graceful manner.
Like in a nice way.
Yeah. And of course, not then and there at the event.
Yeah, no. I mean,
Right?
there's a time and place to have discussions, but I'm just happy that like 99% of my clients are the most amazing, like sweet people. Like I've never had,
Likewise.
like I've had a few in the
Bad.
past where it's been bad, but like the amount of good clients I've had, it just, I forget about the bad experiences. But obviously like it's there, right? And like that bad experience puts a little bit of anxiety in you sometimes, because you're like, I hope this person's not going to be like that really scary person that I had one time.
And for some people that are actually just prone to anxiety, it can develop and manifest into something bigger over time.
Yeah.
And like I've been a small business entrepreneur since 2009. So I've recognized over the years what has happened to me mentally, why I've pivoted and changed certain direction, certain ways, how I conduct my business. I've learned a lot because I'm holding on to some of that trauma.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to just correct it very carefully and from the get-go, I think. Yeah. All right. So next controversial question. So there's a perception that the wedding industry just overcharges simply because it's a wedding. So do you think that's true, or do you think it's justified? Like, what's your take on that?
So in the context of cakes, because for me, it's like I'm making something by hand using ingredients. I think half of the cost comes from purely sourcing ingredients and sourcing the supplies that are needed to create this cake. The other half of that cost is all you're paying for these hands.
100%.
Like
your time.
You're paying for the skill, you're paying for the talent, and you're also paying for the time.
Yeah.
And I think that when people come to me and they say like, oh, can you make me this 100 serving cake for under $200? I'm just like, no.
It's not possible.
Like, what do you mean? Like, first of all, we have to take into account the cost of living. Everything is expensive
100%.
now. Like, and I'm not talking about like ingredients. Like, let's forget the butter and all that. We already know that's costly.
Just the cost of
I'm talking about like actual supplies. Like there's so much that goes into stacking a 3-tier cake. Like you need dowels, you need like the boards underneath, and that stuff costs money, right? So I feel like when people criticize the cost of, and I'm just speaking on behalf of cakes, so when people criticize the cost of cakes, I think it's like, if you were to do this yourself, would you be able to do it? And you might be able to source the ingredients and the supplies, but would you be able to stack and make sure that this cake is going to make it through the night? Because that in itself is a skill. 100%. It's physics. It's like engineering.
That's where your science comes in,
it's right? Like engineering, architecture, and physics. Because it's like, you got to make sure that when you're balancing this thing, and like, you know what the most important thing is? Driving with the cake.
Oh my god.
That's a skill in itself, because it's like, how hard are you braking? How hard are you changing lanes? So it's like all these things are factored into the cost, right? And like a lot of people don't take that in. They're like, oh, but like, oh, I can just buy this from the grocery store. Okay, so then go buy it from the grocery store. Like there's a difference between stuff that is, handmade, like made out of fresh ingredients. So I think it is valid to charge what you're charging, but it should also be like realistic. And I think as consumers and as people that are, talking to different types of vendors and getting married, you should be able to gauge that if the person is being like a little too extra, or like if it's, sounds normal.
Right.
But yeah, I think you have to really factor in like what is going into this amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other than the actual cost, your time, there are day-to-day operating expenses. Now, just because you're not a brick and mortar, it doesn't mean that you don't have operating expenses. Like I have a home studio, but the amount of money it takes just to keep, there's insurance, there's, assistants that you're hiring, social media coordinators, marketing. There's so much that's involved. And like you said, the cost of living is high. So when we're paying those individuals, we have to pay them fairly as well.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to how you're pricing your product ultimately, right? So, okay, that's amazing. I really think you shed a lot of insight on that particular topic, because I think a lot of clients do feel like, oh, just because I'm a bride. And sometimes they try to not tell you the truth. Like I've heard this from other makeup artists. It hasn't happened to me, thankfully, but, they've said, hey, I got an inquiry, but I feel like she's a bride, but she's telling me she wants party
Oh,
makeup, right? And I'm like, if your gut's saying that to you,
yeah.
go with it and
Yeah.
ask 2 to 3 times. You almost sort of have to be shameless about it.
Yeah.
Are you sure this is not your wedding?
Yeah.
Are you sure? So we're gonna jump to the topic of collaborations. We both love them. We also hate them sometimes. There's a love-hate relationship. You know, there is a fine line between exposure and exploitation, right? So the word collaboration gets thrown around a lot, especially by influencers. So how do you determine whether a collaboration is truly beneficial for you, um, or just for someone to get free cake?
So I think that nowadays in 2025, everybody has the capability of calling themselves an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because maybe 10 years ago, that was not the case because not everyone had access to certain cameras or certain equipment or
We have
content.
Amazon
Yeah,
today.
content editing. So maybe back in the day, we could see other people in our community or in our social networks and be like, wow, like that person is an influencer. Like they're getting more attention than the average Joe because they have nice pictures or whatever. So in that situation, it's like, oh, like their profile is getting a lot more attention. And you know, that was the case. But now in 2025, I don't think that's the case anymore. And I actually feel like influencer culture is slowly dying.
Yes, and I'm actually going to be picking your brain on that a little bit, a few questions down. But no, you're absolutely right. But then, how do you ensure that influencers hold their end of the deal? So, say if there is somebody,
Yeah.
you know, very influential,
Yeah.
and you know they've contacted you, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. How do you ensure that they hold their end of the bargain?
So I think like the power of social media now, it has given us the opportunity to become like really aware of who's in our social networks. So like if I come across somebody, I have the tools now to be able to see like who you're following, who follows you, what kind of posts are you posting, so you can actually gauge on your own if this person is truly an influencer.
Right.
And what I mean,
and what their practices
yeah,
are like. Yeah.
and like are they actually backed by brands? Are they, and you can see that, like you can see based on like the collaborations or like the partnerships that they're posting, that they're the campaigns that they're supporting, like you can actually see that there are some people in our social network that are true influencers, and that's amazing and that's great, and they have a lot of exposure, and like, you know, in that situation, totally, that's great. And those people, because they've worked with brands, they know how to approach a collaboration. So they're not going to come to you and be like, hey, can I have a cake for this weekend for my son's birthday party? Like they're not going to do that because they've worked with brands, so they know how to approach it.
But there are certain influencers that do.
There are some, and that's just another
it's like,
whole
you know,
other...
you're having your kid's birthday party, and
it's like you'll be able to tell if somebody is actually being serious because they'll actually say it on their own. Like, okay, here's what you're gonna get in return. Here's what I'm gonna do. So this is what I'm asking for. This is how I'm gonna use it. And this is what you're going to get in return from this collaboration. Are you interested? And I think, are you interested is like the most telling question that somebody can ask you, because they're giving you a choice to be like, oh, yeah, I would love to work with you on this. Because a lot of people nowadays, like everybody and their sister is an influencer. Like, let's be realistic. Like everybody is just like, I'm an influencer. And then they'll message you and be like, hey, like, do you want to work with me? I'm a lifestyle something, and I need a cake, and I'm gonna use it.
And they could just genuinely be good. They could be actually,
oh my God, yeah.
They specialize in a certain topic, or they're on their way, and they're micro influencers. You can gauge it a lot of times from their energy, right? But what do you think about for new individuals, since we're talking to them, right? New business owners, just having a simple collaboration contract in place. This is the date. This is what these are the services rendered for exchange of this X, Y, and Z.
I think it's like, it doesn't even have to be like a formal, well, I mean, it would help if it's like a formal contract, but for someone who's new in business, I would be very, very clear on like, how is this going to add value to my brand? because my brand, you're asking for my brand, right?
Exactly.
Or you're asking for my product. So how is me doing this for you going to add value? And like when you ask people that question and they can't give you a clear answer, that's a red flag.
But you know, a lot of times the clear answer they'll give you, oh, we're helping you get exposure.
Okay, but how? What are you? How?
Where are you posting?
Where are you posting it? What do you mean that you're going to credit it? Like, are you just going to throw up my handle in a caption with a B-roll of like 12 selfies of your face? Like, what is? I want to know the exact. Yeah. When you start pressing them and you start asking these questions, people's veil of like shadam comes off. Yeah. like straight up. Like they start to feel stupid and they'll be like, oh, okay.
So
like,
what about having set guidelines for yourself? I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit. I'm one of those individuals just can never be too prepared. Mm-hmm. So what I ended up doing at one point is having exactly a list of what it is I want out of this collaboration. I want 3 professional touched up photos, for example. Like not touched up in a sense, airbrushed, but I want them clean. I don't want raw images. Mm-hmm. I want time to take my own video and photo. I need an allocated time slot. Yeah. And if I don't get that, then this is an entire waste of time. Yeah. Because say, you know, their discs and everything get corrupted. At least I have mine. Yeah. Right? My time didn't go to waste. And, you know, I have very set things that I need from the entire group. So that I would plug into a contract, and having a contract for everything is not harsh. It's just very clear. Yeah. It's very organized. Most of the time people say like, hey, that's a very, oh, you're so on top of things. You're so organized. Yeah. And simultaneously you show you're eager to work and you want, you know, you're kind of contributing ideas and, you know, within reason, with that has to do with your space in that collaboration. But I think being organized from the get-go is just very helpful.
Yeah, I think like especially like for people that are completely new, I know collaborations are a really good thing for you because it's a way to get your business out there. But I think there needs to be a balance between exploitation and collaboration. Because let's be honest, like as a new business owner, like having somebody share your work or share your business is a really big deal. I had to go through it. I've seen my friends go through it, and it is.
Did you ever have that in a situation where they didn't deliver? Yeah, it's happened. So you just feel like that was just
lots of times, but I feel like I learned from that situation, and it made me super cautious on how I approached collaborations. And if you're new, like I think simply being realistic and honest about how you want your work displayed is going to really go a long way. Yeah. Not just being silent and being like, oh my God, this girl or guy messaged me from Instagram. I'm just going to do whatever they say because it's them. I think that's dangerous for you as a business owner, because you're now giving that person the green light to do whatever they want with your product. And that's not fair, because you are putting your time and effort into this. You're most likely going to go over the top because you want this person to be really happy. And a lot of the time when you don't ask, and a lot of the time like influencers are good. Like I don't want to be shitting on influencers.
Just a few bad
I'm not trying to like shit on influencers. Like, you know, a lot of the time they will post and they will be like,
because they want to keep working.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, this person did this for me. Yeah. But if you just ask them like, hey, like, do you mind posting it as a story? They'll be like, sure. Yeah. Like, sure, of course. But if you don't ask, they're not going to do it. Yeah. Because you didn't ask.
Which is why having it written down, I know I'm like a broken record. It's written down. It's agreed upon. Yeah. Do what's agreed upon.
Exactly. And then if they don't, then you have some grounding to be like, hey, like I asked if you could do ABC and I don't see that you've done it. Like, would you be able to? Like, it definitely helps. Yeah. I think as a new business owner, you just have to be very careful.
Yeah. And the purpose of this entire discussion and this channel is for new business owners and existing ones, you know, that are in the first few years that don't know how to navigate through these things. This is why I've created this space just for those types of discussions, so that you don't have to go through those issues and incidences in your business. So thank you for that, for shedding light onto that subject. So you said influencer culture is dead. And do you think that there is a rise of the micro-influencer?
I think that instead of influencers, I think we are now growing a community of creators.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
I think that instead of calling each other influencers, I think we should be referring to each other as creators. Because let's be honest, like this is just my personal view. Like, I don't think anybody is an influencer anymore. Like, I don't find myself being influenced by anyone on social media. This is just me. But I do see myself taking in content that's being created by people that I follow. And the people that I follow don't have to be like thousands and thousands of followers on Instagram. They could just be like my friend or a girl that I know who's made something or created something and shared it. Like,
or is an expert on a particular topic, right?
Like, oh, I use this cream and like, guys, I use this cream for my face and it did really well. Or guys, I went to this restaurant and the food was really good. Like, they're creating that content and I'm consuming it and I'm being influenced.
Because everybody who is creating content, who has a business, or even just an individual, everyone has their own unique take on a specific subject that they specialize in.
Yeah.
Right? So they're putting that voice out there. And in this day and age, having a variety of thought is a very good thing if you can learn to organize it in your mind, right? So I completely agree with you there. And that's kind of how you think social media is shifting.
Yeah, because again, as I mentioned before, like everyone has the tool to create in their hands. Like we all have these super advanced iPhones, cameras, like we're all creators. We all have the ability to document our life. And I think that is what we're becoming a society that's just creating more and more rather than influencing. And I think naturally as you create and you're out there and you're creating and you're talking and you're having discussions, you are in a way influencing without calling yourself an influencer.
Yeah. And we don't need to.
I think
I
it's
almost
over.
feel like there's like an arrogant connotation.
Like it's done. Like
it's done.
It's over.
For sure. What advice would you give to business owners that are trying to grow their brand in this era of social media?
Content. You have to make content. And
what kind of content?
Don't think that you have to be making high quality content. Like you need
Isn't that the best part?
You need to be putting yourself out there. Because like, no offense, like if people dancing in their bedrooms from like Pakistan can become viral, your cupcakes or your cookies can do the same thing. Like they're not making high quality content, but they're consistent. They're
consistency.
They're there every night putting on that dance. And people are just like, oh my God. And they start following them and it becomes a thing. So you need to be, and like my one advice is like, you can't be shy. You can't be shy in this game. You can't. Because if you're going to be shy, there's somebody else out there who's standing at Young Dundas Square handing out cookies. Like you can't be shy. I used to be shy.
I was so camera shy. Oh my gosh.
I was so shy. I was like, no, I would never put my face online. But the second I did, and I started connecting my personality to my brand, is when I started making the most meaningful and valuable connections
100%.
in my business. We're living in a digital era. So like, if you think that you're going to be able to be successful through a traditional route, you might, but it's going to take you a lot longer.
For sure. And to show up authentically, just who you are.
Yeah.
You know,
just keep it real.
Just keep it real.
Because people are not interested in like fabricated, like
you can see it.
You can tell.
You can see it right away.
We know. We can tell you're fake. So just
and you know, sometimes the thing is you're not for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's fine. You know, some people want the flash. Some people want, but then that's not the audience you want to draw.
Yeah.
You know? So it's okay. You just never know how certain things unfold. Like say if you have a collaboration and that ends up like blowing up and then one person is getting all the royalties for it.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's definitely
and whose
important.
intellectual property is it?
Yeah, it's,
you know?
It's definitely important. Like it with cakes too, it's like you have to, because it just outlines everything that was agreed on. Because like last minute changes, I've had it happen where people will be like, oh, actually, could you change the whole design? And I'm like, no, like we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Like,
this has happened so many times where, you know, we've set a particular hairstyle during the trial. They loved it, everything.
Yeah.
Last minute, midway, after an hour and a half of me prepping and doing, they want a change. Oh, I'm thinking actually. No. Unless you've hired me to do a hair change. Yeah. That's a different story.
Yeah. I think with cakes, it's like, it's a very specific design, and that each design has very specific items, supplies, tools, prep that has to happen. So it's like a last minute change throws off the whole thing. And like for somebody, like I mentioned before, for someone like me where this is not my full-time job, I can't accommodate last minute changes because now I have to go back and get all these other things, and just please don't.
Yeah.
Please no.
Yeah. I think it's a disturbance for most businesses when there are last minute changes.
Yeah.
Within reason. Like
It
you give a
depends.
window,
Yeah,
right?
like
You
it
give a window
also
of
depends on what it is. If it's something small, then sure, no
Okay.
problem. But an entire design change or like adding another tier is kind of a big deal because now I have to go buy more stuff and it throws off my natural course of my planning.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And all of anything that you're creating takes planning.
Yeah.
Even with bridal and wedding bookings, when you're on location, you know, you've booked your first client and group from, say, I don't know, 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning. 11 o'clock, you have to get somewhere. So you need that 1 hour window in the middle to drive to that client, eat something because you will collapse, right? Now you're on your way out, your stuff is packed, and then the bride's mom says, oh my God, I have an aunt, or I have my sister who's here from England, and she really wants her hair and makeup done. Can you please stay for like an extra 20 minutes? First of all, hair and makeup doesn't happen in 20 minutes.
No.
I won't do a good job in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ever do a half-assed job on somebody, and I need to get somewhere. And so there's all of that as well, right? Or there's time changes, for example, like the morning of I'm scheduled to go somewhere and start at a particular time. You show up there, it's like, so we can't start for another 45 minutes. Well, that's 45 minutes of my time.
Yeah.
That's 45 minutes you're going to be late.
Yep.
That's 45 minutes I'm going to be late to my next client. So even the late fees is not going to justify this time change, right? And mind you, if it really is an emergency and there's a real situation on hand, I will do everything in my power to accommodate that. Of course. And I know that client is usually so sorry and they're like, oh my God, okay, how about we don't do this or don't do that. Don't put in my extensions. You know, focus on this a little bit more, and then, you know. Yeah,
like it depends on what the situation is, but for the most part, like just making a last minute change that's just because you're indecisive is usually it's not gonna fly.
Yeah. You have to be decisive. Essentially, I think on the client end, right? You are a project manager. Yeah. You are managing this big production. Weddings are a production, let's be real. Yeah. And you're hiring all of the staff essentially and you have like certain departments. So you have to treat them carefully. Okay, so this is a fun topic. Okay. Family and friends. So love doesn't mean free labor, in my opinion. But how often do friends and family expect free services or discounts? And how do you establish boundaries with them?
Okay, so this is a touchy subject.
It's a very touchy subject, yeah.
I think that our friends and family are our biggest supporters. Well, they should be our biggest supporters. Underline on the should be. But I think that sometimes you get taken advantage of in certain situations because you are a family or a friend. So
yeah, my mom takes advantage of me all the time.
Yeah, so
I'm just kidding.
It's also kind of just like it's kind of like expected of you because, like we have a baker in the family, like, oh, don't worry about the cake. Maria will make it. And I'm just there like, sorry? Like, what? Did anyone even ask me? Like, you know, it's kind of just, it's expected of you because it's like, well, why not? Like, we're supporting you. Like, we're not going to go to anyone else. Like, we're going to come to you. Yeah. But then it's like,
I don't want that kind of support.
It's like, oh, thank you so much for picking me. But you're also not supporting me because you're expecting it for free. Yeah. So it's like, just be mindful. Like, you know, I'm so grateful. Like, in my network, like my friends and family are super supportive and like
likewise your core group.
Yeah, it's because they also see like the hard work and effort that goes into making this giant beautiful cake, so they wouldn't even dare to be like, oh, can you do it for free? Because they see, right? But you obviously have like those one or two members of your family or your friend group that will just kind of expect you to cut corners or like cut costs because of that relationship. And I think it's very tricky, and like the way that I navigate it is I just say the price. Yeah, I just say the price and I'm like, this is how much it is. And
or if you don't want to do it, right? That's the other thing too.
I'm just honest. Like I'll just say the price and I'll be like, hey, like this is how much it's gonna cost. Let me know how you feel. If it's out of your budget, we can change stuff or we can tweak it so that it can be more in your budget. Like always refer to their budget, because if you just say a price, then it's like awkward.
It's awkward, yeah.
Because then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then if you talk about budget, then maybe they'll be like, oh, okay, like I have some wiggle room with her,
Yeah.
you know?
So you know what's interesting is I don't have friends that ever expect free things. My group of girlfriends are just just the best.
It's rare. I mean,
and
well, it's not.
Your vibe attracts your tribe, right?
Exactly.
So that's why they're like, it's sometimes I find more so family.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about moms. Moms deserve everything on a gold platter.
It depends who it is, too.
It depends who it is.
Right? Yeah.
So this situation sort of reminds me of my brother's wedding. And it took place in India. So I took on my sister-in-law, which is, you know, of course, happy to do it. But that is all I have time and energy for because this is my brother's wedding too. Of
course, yeah.
I need to get ready. I'm a makeup artist, so my hair and makeup needs to be on point, right? But of course, like I have to also help my mom if she needs.
Yeah.
And she's so sweet. She's just like, no, don't worry. You know, I'll manage. Just kind of do an audit at the end. So there's that. And then you have the other aunts who just show up. It's like, they haven't had a conversation with you before whatsoever.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
It's like, hey, can you just do this for me? And the way they ask,
I know,
it's so cringe. And I'm just like, I say, but no.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm sorry. I'm way too busy.
Yeah.
You know, you sort of have to establish. And then, you know, you have your mom who is your bodyguard. And she's like, no, she's too busy. So she's going to just be working on the bride. Nobody disturb her right now. And I love that.
My mom's a real one too. Like she'll straight up be like, no, she's really busy with work. Really busy. Like she can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it definitely depends on who it is. Like with my nieces' birthdays, oh my God. Like you guys are getting the most grand cakes ever. And like, you don't even have to ask because I want to, right? Like that's in my heart. Like
and they're family.
They're like my little babies. Like, of course I'm gonna make you like the most beautiful cake ever, and I don't even flinch because it's my niece, right?
Yeah.
But it's like if someone's like uncle's brother's sister is like, oh, you're getting my birthday cake, right? I'm just like, what?
And then there's sometimes, very rarely, they're acquaintances and they know you through your parents and or you know, through a family member, and they're like, we're like family. No, we're really not. We're really not. You know, I don't know who you are. I know of you. I've seen you once, you know?
Yeah.
So it's I find that one really funny and interesting.
I'm just grateful that like my network has people that are super supportive and like that doesn't frequently happen to me. But
this is the 90-10 rule. I feel like that's what we should say because it's very, not even 10%. It's just a few bad apples.
You gotta watch out for those ones because they sneak up on you. Yeah.
Because what happens is the energy and the load of that negative experience feels like it weighs a lot more than, unfortunately, all the amazing things that do exist in your life, like your friend circle and your family members that support you truly, right? Because I hate to say it, and I don't mean to take it for granted, but you expect that to happen, but you don't expect these things to happen. So it weighs on you. You know, it keeps you up at night because you're just hurt.
Like it impacts the quality of like whatever you're making. So like if I know like I'm making this cake because I was forced to do it, I'm not like excited to make it, right? So it's gonna be nice, obviously. Like I'm never gonna make something bad on purpose.
Yeah.
But it's like it would have been even nicer if like I genuinely like put my love and heart into it because I wanted to, you know?
For creators, if you let them approach the project from love, it's magical.
Yeah.
It's magical what can come of it, right? I love your take on that. What advice would you give though? Like solid advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are struggling with this issue? Because some people, I mean, you know, we see it in Brampton, like big families live together, and how do they navigate something like this? You just have to like practice it and make this second nature that it's like, hey, budget.
I think the thing that worked the best for me is how I said before, like just say the price.
Just say the price.
Just say the price and that's it. You've done your part. If the other person wants to react to that and be like, because look, when you say the price, now you're putting the ball in their court.
Yeah.
So they can either bite and be like, okay, that doesn't fit with my budget. Can we do something that would work with this? Like now you can work with them, right? So they can either do that, they can either just say no right off the rip and be like, oh, no, it's okay. But then you win in that situation.
Yeah, and
because
even if they tell you, hey, you know what, you're too expensive for me,
that's okay.
and that can be hurtful
it
sometimes,
can, but it's okay.
But it's okay.
Because maybe they're just not for you.
They're not for you.
But like, I also want to give people the benefit of the doubt and say that
let's work within your budget.
Yeah, and also like if I give you a price, I would want to believe that no, and I know there are people out there that would say this, but I want to believe that people are cautious enough that they wouldn't turn around and be like, oh, you're charging me? Or like, oh, isn't it for free?
But there are people that will.
Oh, yeah.
There are some people. And I find they catch a hold of people that are a little bit more on the softer side.
But then so your response to that needs to be like very well worded. Like you can't be emotional in your response.
I think you can't be entirely emotional and terrified if you are running a business. You have to like really,
you can't be emotional. Like you have to take your emotion out of it and just be like,
you need to develop thick skin.
Yeah, like, hey, so and so, like, you know, I'm really sorry. Like, I would love to do this for you at no cost because I love our relationship, or like because you're so and so's daddies, mommies, chachis, whatever. But like, this is how much it's gonna cost me.
There's a cost.
So like,
and it's also my time.
Yeah, like I would love to do it for you for free. Like I really want to, but I can't because A, B, C. And like, be realistic. Like tell them the time it's gonna take you to make it. Tell them the cost it's gonna. Like, you know, you have to go buy things. You have to do things. Fine, let's forget about cakes. If it's decor, for example,
anything.
Like you have to spend gas to go get the stuff, bring it there, set it up, tear it down. You know, like. Just be realistic. Like, and if that really, and I always go by the principle, like, if that person is truly your family or your friend, they're going to understand.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to understand and be like, okay, you know what? Like, I get
Otherwise, let that energy and that relationship go.
Otherwise, that says a lot.
It says a lot.
If the person is like, oh, I don't care, I do it for free. Like, excuse me? Like, what?
No.
Like, that person's not your friend.
They're not.
So it's like, don't be afraid to say these things, and you don't have to be mean about it, and you don't have to be like super emotional. Like just be real. Like just have a real conversation. Be like, I would love to do it for you, but I can't.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, people will understand.
And I think once or twice when you do it, you're practicing that. You're strengthening that muscle in your mind, I guess.
Yeah.
And you get better and better and better. Maybe the first couple times, you know, you sound like you're really scared. So there are some people who are intimidated, or they're scared of confrontation to that point where it just gives them like so much anxiety. But it just takes overcoming it the first couple of times.
Yeah.
And then you just start getting comfortable with it. And I think first and foremost, tell me if you agree with this, there has to be a built-in level of self-love. I know this term gets thrown around very easily. What's self-love? I love and respect my craft.
Yeah.
And I do not want anyone to take advantage of it to the point where I'm going to start hating this.
Well, that's exactly it. Like the more you stand your ground, you're showing that you value your work and your business, right? Like the more you stand your ground, like people will not feel comfortable approaching you with those questions because they're going to see how passionate you are about what you do, and they're going to feel kind of dumb asking you something like that. And like some people won't. Some people are shameless. Let's be real. Let's be real. Some people have no shame and they're gonna be like, girl, do that for free. And it's like, no.
Yeah. Then you be shameless back, right?
But like you have to have it in you to be like, I can't. Like,
I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly.
Guys, butter is $7. I just want to put that needs to be a highlight right here.
Seriously,
butter is $7.
Every time butter goes on sale, I'm like, Maria,
we're not doing this for free.
I need to pick some up for you. Seriously. All right. So we are on to our rapid fire round.
My gosh. Okay.
It's just, whatever comes to your mind first, and they're quick responses. Okay. Number 1, what's the weirdest request you've had for a cake design?
Oh my god. Okay. There's a Punjabi movie, and like I'm not gonna say it in Punjabi because I can't speak Punjabi, but it's like a husband and a wife. Okay, she makes some saag.
Okay,
and she's like, "Oh, aren't you gonna eat your saag? It's gonna get cold." And he's like, "Oh, you stay hot for me. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about the saag." And for some reason, that part, that line, somebody asked me to put it on a cake for their.
And while you're doing it, or you're getting the information, are you like, can you please explain the
context? I didn't get it because I never saw the clip. And then I'm like, what does that mean? And then like I asked my friends and they're cracking up, they're dying. I watched the clip and I was like, oh my God, I feel so awkward right now. Like he basically asked me to write like "you stay hot for me" like on the cake, and
That's
I was like,
so
I
cute.
feel
That's okay. That's
that's
adorable.
cute. No,
That's so
cute.
adorable.
But like when I watch the clip, like I need the clip to be here because like when you see the clip, it's like so awkward, and you're like, wait, what? What are they talking? They're not talking about the song. They're not talking about the dinner.
Yeah.
Talking about other stuff.
That's hilarious.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's so cheesy and so cute. I love it. I love it. I just love it.
My God.
Okay, number 2. So have you ever been tempted to take a bite out of a cake that before delivering it? Like you're just like, oh my God, this is so damn delicious.
No.
Like, no.
No, never.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
Never.
If you could have one celebrity endorse your cake, who would it be and why?
Imran Khan.
Really? Eh?
Like
Oh,
PTI.
I
Yeah,
love it.
I would. He's such a
Yeah.
love him. Yeah, I would.
So if you had to, oh, I like this question. If you had to bake a cake for me, what would you create?
Oh my gosh, I would make something really like florals for sure.
Really?
Lots of flowers, stenciling. It's something like 3D into it, like something handmade, like something very artsy. Because like when I think of you, I think of like art.
Really?
Like artsy, crafty.
I'm so humbled.
Yeah.
I love it. And interestingly enough, I just started liking flowers.
Really? Okay, yeah.
In the last, I think when I hit 32, I think just right when I got married, completely switched.
Yeah, it would definitely be like something modern, like Art Deco. Because when I think of you, I think of something very like modern, like something very unique that you've never seen before.
That's really crazy that you said that because when I was in design school, I did an entire project on the Art Deco period. Yeah. And I was so fascinated by the style. Right, well, I'm going to pick your brain about my cake in the coming months. If you were to ever start your own YouTube channel, would you showcase tutorials? Would you do classes? What's your vision for the online space?
Well, I'm getting into it. I'm going to be taking my workshops online.
I know.
So yeah, so like they were in person, and I think they were super fun, and we all had a great time.
It was the best.
Yeah, it was a fun time. But I think I want to take it online now to make it more accessible to everybody. And I think being online, from watching it from the comfort of your home, it's just a different experience. So I'm taking it there.
But you're not going to get that buttercream. Oh my God, I'm telling you, I just want to order your buttercream, and I don't even like buttercream normally. I like it's buttercream. Yeah. But what I had at your class, I just wanted a cup.
Well, like I provide the recipe, but it's not the same. But then you can just order a cake. So.
You should just order a cake. Yeah. And sign up for your classes. Yeah. They're amazing. And can you tell me a little bit about your next class date actually and let viewers know as well?
I'm going to try and do a class every month. I'm trying to make my classes where there's an element of difficulty involved so that it's not just something that you can go search up on YouTube, because of course you can do that, but I want to make my classes where there is an element where you have to like learn something. So like I'll give you a
unique feature.
So like the next one, it's going to be for Ramadan, and we're going to be making like crescent and star cakes. And the flavor is going to be the pistachio kanafa, like the Dubai chocolate.
Okay, sign me up.
Yeah, so
sign me up for the rest of the year,
because like that one you obviously need to know like how to do it, how to cut the shape. So yeah, I thought it would be fun for like Ramadan to like watch with kids or whatever. So yeah,
I love it. Okay, well, that concludes all my questions for you today. Okay. I really, really loved having you and discussing all these very interesting and important situations, really, that all small businesses and independents go through. And whether it's cake or whether it's beauty, whether it's the wedding business, I think we all kind of run into these types of situations every now and then. And I love that we're able to bring this to light. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I had so much fun. Thanks for having me.
This conversation has been nothing short of eye-opening. Now, whether you're a cake decorator, a hairstylist, anybody in the beauty industry, or, any other creative entrepreneur, the challenges remain the same. Setting boundaries, demanding respect, and knowing your worth is super important. And at the end of the day, your time, your talent, and your expertise are what make your business thrive, and nobody should be taking advantage of that. So before we wrap up, for those of you who want to connect with Maria, work with her, or just drool over her incredible cake designs, you can find her at Maria Made This. I'm going to link it in the show notes below. And for all of you that are watching, don't forget to show some love. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like this video. It does help us reach more entrepreneurs like you. And subscribe to the CEOs of the Six so you never miss an episode filled with real, raw business advice. And hit that notification bell because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram and stay up to date with future guests and insider business tips, some motivational quotes of the day, follow us at CEOs of the Six and at dolmiamakeup.hair. That's my business page. It's your go-to space for hair health, lived in color, beauty, and transformation. So drop a comment below if you've ever had to deal with difficult clients, sneaky collaborations, or friends who expected freebies all the time. We want to hear your stories. So until next time, keep evolving, keep creating, and most importantly, protect your craft. Bye for now.